But see, white privilege isn't about being rich.
White like me. Where did that come from?
Well, you know, most of us have heard of, if we haven't read, the old book Black Like Me by John Howard Griffin. It was written and released in 1960, written in 59, released in 60 as I recall. And this was a story of a white guy, white journalist, who decided that the only way that he could raise consciousness and really understand for himself what it was to be black was to take medicine, do UV rays for like 3 months and become black for the summer and then go through the South and experience it and then write about it. And I remember reading that when I was in high school, like a lot of us did. And I remember thinking, okay, that's nice, but why don't we just talk about what it means not to be black? Because those of us who are white never going to be black. We don't know that story except secondhand. I said, why don't we just talk about what it means to be white? What does it mean to be white in a country that was set up by people like you for people like you? And so I feel that if we could talk about privilege, if we could talk about our own experiences with advantage, the flip side of black and brown oppression, that we'd have a better insight. Yet he says he never experienced white privilege because he wasn't rich. But see, white privilege isn't about being rich. If you can live in a middle-class neighborhood like Levittown in the 1950s and in the 1960s at a time that, and you got a FHA loan, your family got a government-backed loan to get that house, and then you're gonna say that you've never benefited from whiteness, you're just not paying attention, or you are and you're lying. Any white person that was born before 1964, when the Civil Rights Act was passed, by definition was born into white privilege. I don't even know how anybody could argue that point. And I would say that since 1964, even though some things have changed on the books, the institutionalization of inequality is such that even those of us born after are still reaping privileges. You know, I think about the killing of Eric Garner, I think about the killing of Mike Brown and all these other young black men, and I think about all the things that I did when I was that age, criminal things for which I could be doing hard time right now, selling drugs, using drugs, running a fake ID mill to help white people drink underage in bars in New Orleans, grand theft, vandalism of government property. I did a lot of these things before I was 20, and I've gone through and looked at the statutes. If I'd been caught for all these things, I could be doing 30 to 40 years. I mean, I saw more drugs in my dorm room than I saw in public housing when I worked there for 15 months, but the cops are all down in public housing. They didn't come to room 804 of Monroe Hall at Tulane University, and for that, I'm very grateful. It just goes to show what privilege is, you know?
You took the action of doing those things, those illegal things, which one might say were thuggish.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You ever been called a thug?
No, never. Never been called a thug. And never been, in fact, when I talk about those things, I mean, I tell those stories because I think they're valuable and important to tell, but it is interesting too, the reaction is like, it's funny. You know, people find it humorous that I had a cop pull me over coming back from Texas back to New Orleans with other folks in the car, and there was probably a half an ounce of weed, probably 12, 13 hits of acid, 5 or 6 hits of X, and the cop pulled me over, and I'm trying to find my license, and I couldn't find it, but my fake was right there, my fake ID. And the cop saw it, and he goes, isn't that it? And I'm like, no, that's something else. And I kept fumbling. He didn't ask to see it. He had to know that was a fake, but he didn't search the car. You know, so it's not just that I've never been called a thug. I've never been treated like a thug or like a criminal, even though I was doing things. I mean, there were 2 black guys on our hall at Tulane my freshman year. One of them got high, one of them didn't. But even the one that didn't want to be around us because we were getting so high. He was afraid. He was like, I got to get high somewhere else, because we would have like 3-foot bongs, because white folks just can't smoke a joint apparently.
You are really giving
we
folks that
had
don't like
technology. But even the black guy that got high said, look, when y'all are smoking, I've got to run, because if the cops come up here, they're taking me, and you're going to get rehab, and you know, and then I'm going to jail. So he said, let me know when you're getting high, and I'm going to go somewhere else. And that's, you know, that's the thing. Like, until we actually are grappling with that and understand, we have to demystify this narrative of who's a criminal and who's breaking the law. Because the research says actually up to 90% of all Americans have broken some law at some point that's serious enough that they could have gone to jail. But clearly 90% of Americans are not in jail. And there's a reason for that, and that's about racism and white privilege.